Welcome everyone to today's video where we are going to talk about references we use in Excel. Now when you work on Excel and you do calculations, you will use different references. We have three references that we use in Excel. We have relative reference, we have absolute reference, and we have mixed reference. We are going to talk about those reference and how you can use them in Excel. Firstly, relative reference we use every day. By default, Excel will use relative reference. For example, we have our sales report for the first quarter and second quarter, and we quickly want to do our calculations. So what you will normally do is that you'll use your auto sum. Remember, there are several ways you can use your auto sum. You can click here for auto sum, or you can use Alt equals sign as a keyboard shortcut. It's up to you. So I'm going to sum up my sales for January, and then normally want to have calculated your totals. You will use your autofill or fill handle to copy your formula across, right? And then you will get your answer. So with Excel, for relative reference, it will look at what you have done on the left and it will apply it on the relative cell. So if I go to March and I edit my formula in March, instead of ending on 11, it ends on let's say E9, and I press enter. Then you'll see a smart tag. We call this a smart tag. If I go and check my smart tag, it will say inconsistent formula, copy the formula from the left. Like I said, Excel will copy the formula from the left and apply it to the relative cell. So when you are copying your formula across, Excel will be using relative reference. Also, if you calculate vertically, like I am over here, getting my quarter sales totals per salesperson, if I copy my formula down, I can put my autofill handle over there and double click, throws the formula down, so it will apply as well. It will look at what we have done above and apply it on the relative cell. So Excel by default will apply that. But you might find sometimes that relative reference doesn't work. So if relative reference doesn't work, then how would you do your calculations? Because remember, in Excel, we want to work smarter, we want to work faster. So let's calculate our quarter sales totals over here to work out the commission that we give to our sales reps, which is based on 15%. So I'll put in my formula. I'll say equal sign, take my total, multiplying with the 15% and press enter. Then I will copy my formula down and it won't work out because once again it applies relative reference. It will jump to the relative cell, which is a problem because we are not going to get the results we want. And I know a lot of people will use hard coding. Hard coding is this. I will type in hard coding there. Now hard coding will be equal sign. You take your total, you multiply it with 15%, but you type in the 15%. You would say that you are hard coding your formula. And we try to avoid that in Excel. So if I copy my formula down, when I use hard coding, my formula would work out perfectly because it multiplies with the 15% that I have typed in. Now, on this one, back to the commission, we are trying to avoid hard coding. So what we'll do is that we'll need to log this particular cell, the 15%. So how do I do that? I go to my formula, I activate my formula by double clicking on it. Then the cell I want to log is F4, this cell over here. I don't go directly to the cell. I look at the cell reference in my formula. So F4 is the cell that I need to log, right? Now don't get confused. There's F4, the cell reference in this case. And on your keyboard as well, we have F1 to F12, which are the function keys. You use F4 to log the cell. So if you are using a laptop, you'll press F and F4 depending on your laptop settings. Some laptops you might have to use Fn, others you don't have to. So check your laptop first. If you press F4 without Fn and then it doesn't log, locking, you'll see the $2 signs, right? If it doesn't log the cell, then you know that it will work with Fn, F4. But if it logs, then you don't have to worry about Fn. So mine uses Fn. I'm going to press Fn and F4 on the keyboard because also my 15% is sitting on M4 in this case for this example. So if I come to my formula, you'll notice that I have a dollar sign before the letter F and I have another dollar sign after the letter F next to 4. If you see a formula that has dollar sign like that, it tells you that your cells are locked. It means your column is locked because the dollar sign before the letter F is telling you that column F is locked, right? And the dollar sign before the number 4 is telling you that row 4 is locked, right? So when I press enter and I copy my formula down, you'll see that my formula works out perfectly, right? So if you look at the calculation here for my commission in column J and the one where we use hard coding in column K, they look the same, but here is the difference. If they come back to you and say, listen, the commission is no longer 15%, it's now 18%, for example. So I change that to 18%. I press enter, it will update my formula because we are using cell reference. Hard coding, it will not update, right? So be careful. If you know that that percentage is not going to change anytime soon, then you can get away with hard coding, but it's not advisable because things change in Excel, right? It can be human error, it can be information being updated. So if that happens, where you have to change the values in different cells, it's easier if you have logged your cell in this case, and if you make those changes, your formula can quickly update rather than hard coding your cell reference, or sorry, not the cell reference, hard coding the values in Excel. So that's the important thing. So please keep that in mind. So if you see $2 signs, that means your cell is absolute reference, which means if you copy your formula down, it will not jump to the relative cell. And just as an example, if I copy my formula also across, it will still refer to that percentage. So it means that it will not jump to the relative column or jump to the relative cell. I'm going to undo that. Control Z in this case. Let me go out. Control Z. So if you have made your cell absolute, it will not copy to the relative row. It will not copy to the relative column because you have logged both the row and the column when you make it absolute. Please remember that. So that is your absolute reference. Now, also I'm going to show you another absolute reference. I have my prices, I have my VAT rate. So I want to calculate my VAT rate. So I'm going to say equal sign, the price multiplied by the 15%. And I enter. So when I copy my formula down, it will jump to the relative cell. It will not work, as you can see. So I have to make sure that I log the cell. In this case is the 15% is sitting on cell C4. So I have to log C4. So I go to my formula, I double click to activate it. Then I put my pointer, you see the thing that's flashing there, I put it anywhere next to C4, right? It can be before, in the middle, but anywhere next to E4. Then in my case, because my laptop uses Fn, the function key, I'll press Fn, F4 to make my cell absolute. Some of you just need to press F4. Then you can see the $2 sign, which tells me that both my column, right, and my row are locked. So it means that if I have to copy my formula across, it will not jump to column D. If I have to copy my formula going down, it will not jump to row 5. So both my columns and rows are locked. It's absolute. Then once again, I put my pointer there, my fill handle, and I double click, then it copies my formula down. It works out perfectly. So that is absolute reference. Now I'm going to come to this example now. This example, we are going to look at using both absolute and mixed references. Now, mixed references, we are either looking only the column or only the row. So how does that work? I have my data here, my training budget. I've been given 850,000 budget, and then I have to do training for the whole year. So there's the breakdown of my percentages for each course that I need to train, and also there's a breakdown for monthly expenses for each course for the whole year. So I need to work out how much I'm going to spend on each course every month to send my people for training based on the budget given to me, right? So what I will do is that I need to look at the layout of my data. If I look at my percentages here, they are captured per row, right? And then if I look at my monthly percentages here, they are captured per column, right? And I have my monthly budget sitting there. There's nothing on the relative row, there's nothing on the relative column, right? Or on the column. So if my information is sitting like that, I'm going to log my columns because I don't want my information jumping to another column. Or you can also perceive the data like this. My information is sitting in a column. I'm going to log my columns. Over here as well, my information is captured per column, so I need to make sure I log my rows because when I copy my formula down, I don't want it to go to the relative row. Or you can just look at it this way. My information is sitting in a row, so I need to log my row. But the point is that you need to make sure that you are logging the right reference so that when you copy your formula, you don't mess up your data. So let's try it. So I will come here and put in my equal sign. You can start anywhere as long as you know what you are looking. So over here, we agreed that we are looking the columns because we don't want our information to jump to the columns when I copy my formula. So I'm going to click here and then I'm going to press F4. I will get $2 signs, which I don't want. So press F4 again. I get $1 sign before the number. So if you see $1 sign before the number, it tells you that your rows are locked. We don't want that. So I press F4 again. I have $1 sign before the letter C, which tells me that my columns are locked. That's what I want. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to multiply. Now, the next thing I need to multiply by my budget, which is sitting on C7. So with my budget, I don't have anything on the row, below the row or relative row, and nothing on the relative column. So I need to log both the row and the column. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click anywhere next to C7. Remember, you can do it from the cell or the formula bar. It's still fine. So I'm going to press Fn in my case and F4. Others just press F4. So I have logged both the column and I have logged the row. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to multiply by my monthly percentages. So we agreed here that we are looking our rows, because when we copy down, we don't want our formula to go to the relative row. So I'm going to, in my case, press Fn F4. Others just press F4. You get the $2 signs. I don't want that, because remember, this is absolute. It logs the column and the row. We don't want that. So I press F4 again. I get my dollar sign before the number. So that's what I want, because I want to log my rows. Keeping in mind, we identify rows by numbers, remember, and then we identify columns by alphabet or letters. So if I see the dollar sign before the number, I know that my rows are logged. If you see the dollar sign before the letter or the alphabet, you know that your columns are logged. So those that have done training with me, I always say this: see that dollar sign as a key. So if it's before the letter, your columns are locked. If it's before the number, your row are locked, right? So I'm going to press enter. Then I have an answer. So I can copy my formula across until December. It goes until December. And I'm going to double click, and then it will go down until the last course there. So you see, I see a lot of hash. So what I will do to quickly get rid of that, I will highlight from column C, where my January start, until column A, where my total is, and I put my pointer there. Can you see between the line that separates column O and column P, and I double click. Then it will fix my problem there of seeing hash. So there it has calculated. I'm going to zoom out a bit there and then double click again so that we can see the numbers, because what I want to quickly show you is this. If you have logged correctly, I'll double click on one of those cells and I'll scroll up again so that you can see that it's just moving right. So you can see here it jumped to the relative row, is calculating the percentage there, and it jumps to the relative column, is calculating the percentage for April over there. I'm sitting on April. And then remember, the budget is absolute. It doesn't move anyway. It doesn't move to the relative row or the relative column. So my mixed references work perfectly, my absolute work perfectly. So I only calculated one cell and I was able to copy it across. My totals were already calculated, the formulas were there. So absolute and mixed references can come in handy. Sometimes you might have to use only mixed references or absolute and mixed references depending on your data. I have a lot of delegates asking me, when do I use mixed reference? When do I use absolute reference? It will depend on the layout of your data. But if you have this kind of a layout where you have a percentage sitting there by itself and you have to copy the formula down, or you have to copy the formula going down and across, and you want it to focus on one cell, then that's where you use your absolute reference, right? But also here, your mixed reference can work, because you only copying going down, and then you don't want the cell, the percentage, or you don't want it to copy the row. Let me put it that way. You don't want it to copy the row. So what you can do, you can make this a mixed reference. You can just log the row, because it will just work out as well the same. Can you see? It will not jump to the relative row, right? But it becomes a problem if you have to copy it across. If you had another, then it will not copy because you have nothing in the relative column and it's not locked, so it will jump to the relative column. So in this case, like I said, you can use absolute, or you can use mixed reference where you log the row. I hope I'm not confusing you at this stage. So I'm going to take it back to absolute reference. I'm going to press F4 until it gets to absolute reference. So if in this case, for me, I will use absolute reference. Even though I'm copying it only down, just log both and just copy my formula down, right? I can use absolute reference. And then when do you use mixed reference? If you have data going across columns or going down on rows, so you have multiple percentages that you are working with, then it will be advisable to use your mixed reference and also understand the layout of your data to say, is my information captured per row or per column? What am I logging? Or you can say this information is sitting in a row as I perceive it, so I'm going to log my row. This information is sitting in a column as I perceive it, so I'm going to log my columns. So you can do it because our logic and perception can be different, but it's important that based on your understanding, you log the right cell references so that you get the correct results. So also what I wanted to mention, how would you know if you haven't logged your references correctly? Let me take you back to this example as well. So let's say I'm copying my formula down, right? Let me delete this. Let's say you're copying your formula down. I'm going to say equal sign that, and I'm going to multiply with my percentage. I do that, and you're thinking, I want to log my cell. I think I want to log my rows, but you can't remember if the dollar sign goes before or after. So you decide to say, okay, I'm going to put my dollar sign there, and then you press enter. Because remember here, we have logged our columns, but not our rows. So the minute you copy the formula down, it's not working out. Go back and change it. Then you go back and say, all right, let me try it this way. Then, okay, I want to log my column, so I put the dollar sign before the number. I want to log my rows, so my rows are now logged. So because I know when you are doing it for the first time, it can be a bit confusing. So if you are still learning and trying to get used to it and you don't remember if you are looking your columns or your rows, just try it out, test it out and see if it's working. If the dollar sign is not working out, then swap around the dollar sign, move it to the other side and see if that works. But also try to register it in your mind that if my dollar sign is before the number, it means that my rows are logged. If my dollar sign is before the letter or the alphabet, my columns are logged. I hope this really helps. And for those who done training with me, I always repeat that try to remember the rows are represented by numbers. So the dollar sign is the key that locks the rows. And the columns are represented by alphabets, and the dollar sign before the alphabet or the letter represent a key that locks the columns. So try to register it like that, and then maybe it will help you to remember. And if it's both, it's absolute. That means both the column and the row is locked. And if it's only one dollar sign, it's mixed reference. Either the row or the column is locked. And if there's no dollar sign at all, it means it's relative reference. So yeah, good luck. And I hope this helps for those who asked for the video. If you have more questions, please put it under the comments. I will try to get back to you. Actually, I will definitely get back to you and answer any questions that you might have and clarify anything. Okay, thank you. See you on the next video.